Stop scrolling. What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally alter how your mind processes reality. There exists a cognitive framework, hidden in plain sight for 5 centuries, that unlocks a level of intelligence most people will never access. Not because they're incapable, but because nobody taught them to see it. Niccolò Machiavelli wasn't just a political theorist. He was a master decoder of human consciousness. While serving the Florentine Republic, he discovered something extraordinary. Intelligence isn't fixed. It's a muscle that strengthens when you train it to recognize specific patterns invisible to the untrained eye. The most brilliant minds throughout history, those who shaped empires and revolutionized industries, they all possessed one common trait. They could see the hidden architecture beneath surface events. They operated with a clarity that seemed almost supernatural to others. And Machiavelli documented the exact mental frameworks that activate this heightened state of awareness. I'm going to hand you 6 cognitive keys. These aren't motivational concepts or philosophical theories. They're practical mental tools that physically rewire how your brain interprets information. Once activated, they create what I call strategic consciousness, a state of heightened intelligence where you process situations 3 steps ahead of everyone around you. Here's what most people don't understand. Your current level of thinking isn't your ceiling. It's just your default setting. And that default has been programmed by a society that benefits from you staying mentally average. Machiavelli's forbidden knowledge threatens that system because it shows anyone, regardless of background or education, how to think at genius level. By the end of this, you'll notice something strange happening. Your perception will sharpen. You'll catch subtleties in conversations that you missed before. You'll anticipate outcomes before they unfold. Your mind will be operating on a frequency that most people never discover exists. But I need to warn you, this knowledge comes with a price. Once you see reality through this lens, you can't unsee it. Social interactions will never feel the same. You'll recognize patterns everywhere. People will seem more transparent, their motivations more obvious, their moves more predictable. Some find this liberating. Others find it isolating. Either way, there's no going back. So decide right now if you're ready for this. Because what follows isn't just information. It's a cognitive activation that separates those who react to life from those who architect it. Drop this affirmation in the comments if you're ready. My intelligence is about to expand. Key 1. Master the intelligence of silence. Let me ask you something. How often do you speak before you've fully processed a situation? How many times have you explained yourself when silence would have served you better? That compulsion to fill every void with words, it's draining your cognitive power. Machiavelli observed that the most intelligent people in Italian courts weren't the most talkative. They were the most observant. They understood that silence is not passive. It's the highest form of active intelligence. Here's what happens neurologically when you master strategic silence. Your brain shifts from output mode to input mode. Instead of formulating responses, you're absorbing data. Instead of defending positions, you're analyzing patterns. This creates what cognitive scientists call receptive intelligence, where your mind becomes a processing center rather than a broadcasting station. When you stop filling conversational gaps, something fascinating occurs. Other people rush to fill the void, and when they do, they reveal everything. Their insecurities spill out. Their true intentions surface. Their weaknesses become visible. You're not manipulating them. You're simply creating space for truth to emerge naturally. But there's a deeper level to this. Silence protects your cognitive resources. Every unnecessary word you speak drains mental energy. Every explanation you don't need to give depletes your processing power. The most intelligent move is often saying nothing at all, conserving that energy for strategic thinking. Machiavelli wrote, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves." The fox's greatest weapon isn't aggression. It's knowing when to stay invisible, when to observe rather than engage, when to let others exhaust themselves while you gather intelligence. Think about chess masters. They don't make moves quickly. They sit in silence, processing infinite possibilities, calculating branches of consequence. That silence isn't hesitation. It's genius at work. Practice this today. In your next interaction, resist every urge to explain, justify, or defend. Just listen. Watch what information flows to you when you stop pushing information out. You'll be stunned by how much intelligence you gain simply by quieting your output. Drop this affirmation. Silence sharpens my mind. Key 2. Activate pattern recognition intelligence. Most people navigate life as if events are random. They don't see the patterns. They don't recognize the cycles. They experience the same outcomes repeatedly and call it bad luck. This is the opposite of intelligent thinking. Machiavelli spent decades studying power dynamics across Italian city-states, and he discovered something profound. Human behavior operates on predictable patterns. The same cycles repeat. The same personality types emerge. The same strategies succeed or fail based on eternal principles. This is where genius-level intelligence begins, training your mind to see patterns that others miss. Start with people. Every person you encounter is running behavioral software programmed by their experiences, fears, and desires. When you learn to read this code, you can predict their responses before they make them. This isn't mind reading. It's pattern recognition. Watch how someone behaves under stress. That's their true operating system. Notice who they blame when things go wrong. That reveals their level of personal accountability. Observe what they talk about when given free conversation. That shows you what occupies their mental space. But here's where it gets powerful. Once you recognize these patterns in individuals, you start seeing them in groups, organizations, entire systems. You notice that certain leadership styles always produce specific outcomes. That certain communication patterns always lead to conflict. That certain business models always hit the same wall. This is how intelligence compounds. You're not just understanding one person or one situation. You're building a mental library of universal patterns that apply everywhere. Machiavelli observed, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." Translation: most people only process surface information. Genius-level thinkers feel the deeper patterns beneath visible events. Train this skill deliberately. Pick someone in your life and study them for 1 week. Don't judge, just observe. Note their patterns. Track their contradictions. Predict their next move. Then verify if you were right. This is how you activate pattern recognition intelligence. The world stops being random chaos and becomes a readable system of recurring patterns. That's not cynicism. That's clarity. Drop this affirmation. I see patterns everywhere. Key 3. Develop strategic opacity intelligence. This principle makes people uncomfortable, but it's essential for high-level thinking. Never reveal your complete thought process to anyone. The moment people fully understand your reasoning, your intelligence loses its advantage. The moment they see your entire strategy, they can counter it. The moment they know your true capabilities, they can either exploit them or feel threatened by them. Machiavelli understood that intelligence operates most powerfully when partially concealed. Not through deception, but through selective revelation. You show people what serves your purpose and protect what doesn't. Think about this cognitively. When you overshare your thoughts, you're inviting external processing of your ideas. Everyone starts offering opinions, poking holes, inserting doubt. Your mental clarity gets contaminated by noise. But when you keep your deepest insights private, your thinking remains pure. You can develop ideas to completion without interference. You can test strategies without premature judgment. You can build in silence and reveal only results. This doesn't mean being secretive about everything. It means being intelligent about what you expose. Share surface observations freely. Discuss general concepts openly. But your core strategy, your real goals, your full capability, that stays protected until the right moment. Consider this. The most intelligent people you know, do they broadcast their every thought? Do they explain their reasoning to everyone who asks? No. They move with a certain opacity that makes them more intriguing, more respected, more powerful. There's also a protective element here. When people don't fully understand you, they can't manipulate you. They can't use your own thinking against you. They can't predict your moves accurately enough to block them. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This isn't about being fake. It's about recognizing that your internal world is sacred space. You control who gets access and how much they see. Practice this now. Next time someone asks about your plans, give them the version they need to hear, not your complete blueprint. Notice how this creates space for your intelligence to operate without interference. Drop this affirmation: "My thoughts are my power." Key 4. Master narrative intelligence. Here's a truth that will shift your entire perception of reality. Whoever frames the story controls the meaning. Situations don't have inherent meaning. They have the meaning that gets assigned to them first and most convincingly. This is genius-level intelligence in action. Understanding that reality is not just what happens, but how what happens gets interpreted and communicated. Machiavelli watched as political events got spun in completely opposite directions depending on who told the story. The same action could be framed as strength or weakness, wisdom or folly, leadership or tyranny. The facts didn't change. The narrative did. And the narrative determined outcomes. Most people are passive about their own story. They let others interpret their actions. They allow misunderstandings to solidify. They wait for situations to speak for themselves. This is cognitively lazy and strategically weak. Intelligent thinkers craft their narrative actively. They don't wait for interpretation. They provide the frame. They don't let others define what their actions mean. They define it themselves, clearly and early. Let's say you make a decision that others might question. The average person gets defensive, tries to justify after the fact, reacts to criticism. The intelligent person frames it proactively. Here's what I did, here's the thinking behind it, here's the outcome I'm creating. Same action, but they controlled the interpretation. This extends to your entire personal brand. How do people perceive you? Is that perception accurate and useful? If not, you have the intelligence to reshape it through deliberate communication, consistent action, and strategic self-presentation. This isn't manipulation. It's taking ownership of how your reality gets interpreted instead of leaving it to chance or to people who may not understand your perspective. Social dynamics, business negotiations, even family relationships, all of these operate on narrative control. The person who can tell the most compelling, coherent story about what's happening gains influence over the situation. Machiavelli noted, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." Your value isn't determined by external labels. It's determined by how you frame your own worth. Start exercising this intelligence now. Think about one area where people misunderstand you. Then deliberately craft a clear narrative that corrects that misunderstanding. Don't argue. Don't defend. Just present a better story. Drop this affirmation: "I control my narrative." Key 5. Activate decisive intelligence. Most people confuse intelligence with endless deliberation. They think smart people consider every option forever, weighing pros and cons indefinitely. That's not intelligence. That's paralysis disguised as thoughtfulness. Machiavelli observed that the most effective leaders, the ones who shaped history, possessed something beyond analytical intelligence. They had decisiveness, the ability to gather information rapidly, process it efficiently, and act with conviction. This is where genius-level thinking separates from average thinking. Average minds get stuck in analysis loops. Genius minds know when to stop gathering data and start executing. Here's the cognitive framework: intelligence without action is just potential. The smartest analysis means nothing if you can't translate it into decisive movement. Machiavelli wrote The Prince to teach this exact principle. Sometimes the intelligent move looks aggressive to comfortable people, but effectiveness matters more than comfort. Think about the decisions you've been avoiding. That conversation you need to have. That person you need to distance yourself from. That change you need to make. Your hesitation isn't protecting you. It's weakening your position while strengthening whatever problem you're avoiding. Decisive intelligence means making choices based on strategic outcomes, not emotional comfort. It means removing obstacles without hesitation. It means being willing to make moves that others will judge because you're operating from a higher level of thinking. Let's be clear, this isn't recklessness. Decisive intelligence still involves calculation. But the calculation happens quickly, and once the decision is clear, execution is immediate. No second guessing. No endless debate. Just intelligent action. This applies to self-discipline too. If you've decided to develop a skill, wake up earlier, or complete a project, decisive intelligence means you follow through without internal negotiation. You've already processed the decision. Now you execute. Machiavelli stated, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Applied to intelligence, this means, it's better to be decisive and occasionally wrong than perpetually uncertain and never moving forward. Respect comes from conviction, not from pleasing everyone. The balance is this: be decisive in your actions, but not impulsive. Think strategically, but don't overthink. Act with power, but not with cruelty. This is the difference between decisive intelligence and just being reactive. Drop this affirmation: I think and act decisively. Key 6. Develop contingency intelligence. The final framework, and perhaps the most critical. Genius-level thinkers always have multiple scenarios prepared. They never depend entirely on one outcome, one person, one plan. Machiavelli witnessed countless leaders fall because they put all their trust in a single alliance, a single strategy, a single source of power. The moment that one thing failed, they collapsed. They had no backup intelligence. This is what separates resilient intelligence from fragile intelligence. Fragile minds build their entire reality on one foundation. Resilient minds build multiple support systems, always prepared for different outcomes. Think about your life right now. If your primary income disappeared, do you have alternatives? If your main social circle dissolved, do you have other connections? If your current path closed, do you have other directions? If your answer to any of these is no, you're operating with fragile intelligence. This isn't about paranoia. It's about strategic preparation. The intelligent person doesn't just hope things work out. They ensure that no single failure can destroy them. Here's how this activates genius-level thinking. When you have options, your mind operates from abundance rather than desperation. You make better decisions because you're not emotionally attached to any single outcome. You negotiate from power because you can walk away. You take calculated risks because you've already prepared for different scenarios. Let's say you're pursuing an opportunity. The person with no backup pursues it desperately, accepts poor terms, and loses leverage. The person with backup has multiple options, stays calm, and commands respect. Same opportunity, different intelligence levels, completely different outcomes. Or imagine conflict with someone. The person with no alternatives gets emotional, burns bridges, and damages themselves. The person with contingency intelligence stays composed because they're not dependent. That detachment gives them strategic advantage. Machiavelli observed, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." Don't wait until crisis forces you to build options. Build them now, while you have time and resources. Develop multiple skills. Cultivate diverse relationships. Create various income streams. Strengthen different areas of your life. This is the ultimate expression of intelligence, preparing for futures that may never come while thriving in the present. When you can't be destroyed by any single event, you're operating at genius level. Drop this affirmation: I always have options. The activation, there you have it. 6 cognitive frameworks that separate average thinking from genius-level intelligence. These aren't just concepts to consider. They're mental tools that, when applied, fundamentally alter how your brain processes reality. Most people who read this will nod along and return to their default programming. But a small percentage will recognize what they've just received, a complete cognitive upgrade based on 5 centuries of tested human psychology. The question is simple: which person are you? If this activated something in your mind, don't just consume and leave. Like this content. Share it with someone ready for this level of thinking. Subscribe because we're just beginning to explore intelligence frameworks that most people never discover. Drop your affirmation in the comments. Tell me which key resonated deepest. Show me you're serious about activating genius-level intelligence, because this path isn't for everyone. It's for people who are done operating at average capacity and ready to unlock what their mind is actually capable of. Remember, intelligence isn't what you're born with. It's what you activate through the right frameworks. The world doesn't reward the most comfortable thinker. It rewards the most strategic, the most prepared, the most aware. Stop thinking like everyone else. Start thinking like Machiavelli. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp. Drop this final affirmation: my intelligence is fully activated.